Hey guys, mcfixit here. We are going to take this Essence Neo and erase some of the stamp and put the Galactic order on the top of it. I got this at thecraftshop.com. It gives you pretty much any kind of file that you will need. I am going to use a Cricut to cut it. In fact, I've already gone ahead and done that. It'll be hard to see, but it is right here. I made it 2.5 inches, so it will fit right at there at the top of my disc. But I am going to erase Discmania and Evolution. I'm going to try my best to keep Essence, and so what you'll need is some of this Oracle 651. We'll cut it to fit right here. Then erase the top stamp with some acetone and some paper towels. You'll also want a ruler, and you'll also want transfer paper. You're going to want acetone, black. I'm doing dye poly for this one. You are going to want a turntable because I am going to spin some lines on the top of it afterwards. If you don't have a Cricut, you can kind of do it the old-fashioned way, and I actually have another video that I've done that in. And you just simply cut it. And so the ratio, I forgot to say, the ratio for the black is about 2 ounces to about 1/4 of a teaspoon. You're going to want some kind of tool that allows you to scrape the air bubbles out of it. You can use a credit card. This came with my Cricut for free, so I use it. I use a pick a lot to get the little parts out of the stamp, and so it'll be hard to show on that. So I'll actually show you on here. We'll actually peel out that so you can paint that black with the acetone black. A couple of paint brushes. Get a good one for what you're going to do around the edge. The other one doesn't matter as much, or just use the same one. You also want a pair of scissors. Make sure you have gloves, a magic eraser to clean the disc, and I use a lot of Dawn dish soap and water in a spray bottle to just kind of clean everything at the end. You don't want the stamp to run, and so go ahead and take this, get a couple of paper towels, and go ahead and wash off your disc. Okay, let's go ahead and turn on some water. Get your magic eraser under the water. And this is a used disc. It's pretty new, but it still is used, so you're going to want to make sure you clean it really well. We're not going to be using this for a lotion dye, so you don't have to worry as much about getting the actual rim, but I am going to get it just a little bit, so we're not putting it in a bed. We're just going to do some other really cool things with it. Go ahead and get a paper towel, dry that off really good, and that thing will be ready for us to go ahead and take back to our workstation. So I'm going to go ahead and get my turntable, and I did put a silver Sharpie line to just give me a really good idea what center looks like. Then you can go ahead and click it on. You can choose a couple of different speeds on this one to see how fast you want it to go, and to make sure it looks really centered. Sometimes you do have to kind of move it around to find centered. That's looking really good right there. Sorry, this is like a Bluetooth one. This one's kind of fancy. I got it really cheap though for just a couple of bucks, and has lots of extra sounds that it does. So I'm going to just put black lines, and I'm going to put one right here and one on the edge of the rim. And so open this up slowly. It's a little off camera, I know, but I don't want to spill it in. For some reason, this black one always seems to spill if I try to do it off of the table, which it didn't this time. So you get a good paintbrush, you go ahead and turn it back on. You're just getting the edge, just the very tip of the paintbrush in it, and I'm going to do just the edge. And this does take some time and some patience, so just let it take as long as it takes. So the goal, and I'm not the best at doing spin dyes, but the goal is to hit the area you didn't hit the last time, because it normally only goes about I'd say about 1/3 of the way around of what it did last time, and so the dye does not go all the way all the time. I don't like a ton of black on my disc, but this does really give kind of a cool effect, especially with that vinyl we're going to put on there and dyeing that portion as well. It's going to look really cool when it's done. Okay, now we're going to hit up kind of right where the edge of the rim is on this one. Not very thick. That's the goal, at least. Sometimes it does get thick. Just a thin rim right there. And that is all we're going to do. And so you can kind of see that worked really well. And you get kind of that dual effect right there, which looks pretty sweet. Let this thing sit. I have been tempted sometimes to go ahead and grab this and do something else with it. I like to just let it sit. In fact, what I do is I normally close it down on there, and it kind of forces me not to go ahead and continue playing with it, but let that thing sit. I let it sit for at least an hour with that dye on there. Go ahead and close this back up, go ahead and get some acetone and clean that paintbrush. Again, I normally save my better paintbrushes for these kind of dyes, so you do want to make sure you get all of that out. And that way your paintbrush is ready to go for the next time. And I just let that thing air out afterwards, and it should be all good and ready to go. So now that you've gone ahead and washed your disc, you want to make sure those lines stay on there really well, so go ahead and wash it. You're going to go ahead and take your vinyl and get your transfer paper, peel this off. This transfer paper I've used many times, and all I did was kind of fold it in half. I then put a big disc around it. That was a wombat, drew the circle. I then just made it kind of give me some kind of idea on what placement looks like. And so you're going to go ahead and take this, and you got to kind of guess where center is. So it's going to be very hard to see, and I didn't really even cut this one very good with the scissors because I did make multiple of this. So I kind of folded in half right here and try my best to get as close to center as possible, and that was not very good at all. It's okay though, it'll work. So we're just gonna play that into it, which is fine. So you're just taking this tool. You can use a credit card, you can use a gift card. If you have one of these tools, there will also be a link for one in the description. I think go ahead and take it and do the back side as well. And we will go ahead and peel. So the goal of this is, because we've put the air bubbles out and we've pressed down, is the contact paper should catch the front of this design. Sometimes you have to go back and forth like I'm doing right there. And even though this design looks kind of basic, it is an easy one to mess up. In fact, I messed it up just a minute ago and had to recut a new one because I pulled the wrong section out. And so we go ahead and take this, and you're going to take your logo of that stencil and try to line it up exactly where you want it. And go ahead and press down onto the disc. Go ahead and grab that same tool you just used, and we're just going to begin to get the air bubbles out. And because that contact paper is not as sticky as the underlying surface, it should come off pretty well there. And so you go ahead and look at that, make sure that's where you want it. You only got really one shot, so I hope it's where you want it. Then the next goal is to get as many air bubbles out of this as possible, especially on the edges. So take your time, get the air bubbles out. So wherever you have a cut from that Cricut machine, or if you do this by hand, you want to make sure all of the little air bubbles are out. Okay, I'm going to get more out in a minute. So the next thing you have to decide is what you want to be your kind of white space, which stays down there, and then the paint part that you are going to kind of paint with some dye. And so I want to pull out this section, and sometimes you need a tool like this to almost rip through a little bit. You don't want to get your disc, so I'm just going on the top of that vinyl. There it goes. And sometimes you do have to just rip that a little bit. So again, you're just continuing to go around and find where it needs to come up. Take your time, go slow, there's no rush on this part, because you can ruin it and have to do it again. This has a lot of kind of going back and forth on this particular design. So just take your time. Okay, this is going to look really cool, I can already tell. So, you're going to want to press it down one more time. Make sure all of this gives you a nice solid edge. And so make sure all of it looks good. I do know some people who wait a while, a couple of hours even, before they go ahead and do this. I've not found that that helps that much, at least at this point. I've tried it once or twice and I feel like I get the same outcome whether I let it sit for just a couple of minutes or a long time. But I just kind of go around the edges really well, making sure there's no air bubbles. And so you can kind of see some air bubbles here. I'm not near as worried about that because I'm not going to get, it's not like the dye is going to go down and under. It's just really on the edges. Here's what I'm worried about. I mean, you can get rid of those ones, but you do have to be careful because sometimes you can try so hard to get rid of an air bubble and you can actually rip this. So do be careful if you're trying to get every little air bubble out towards the side. To me, that doesn't matter near as much. As it does kind of right in here. So take your time. Also, this is a good opportunity before you put the dye on. Do you feel like you're pretty lined up dead center? Because this is your last opportunity before you start to dye. One other thing I do when I dye is I try to kind of set up my area pretty well, and I'm actually going to take just a touch of painter's tape because I probably should have put this end on that end and I didn't think about it ahead of time, but just to try to avoid any additional spills. And so, and I probably could even just put painter's tape down, but I like to kind of have a little bit of buffer right there. With the paper towels. But that right there, so I'll work from this side as I do this. And this is one that you do have to kind of be careful of. We're going to choose black. And I do seem like this black, for some reason, I spill it a lot. So I'm going to kind of go maybe a touch more off screen than I normally do when I undo this. Because I don't want to spill. There it goes. Okay. Now when you do the black, you don't go all the way down in it. You just barely push the top. Put it in the top. And I kind of come up and wipe it a couple of times. So there's no rush to this, just take your time. I mean, you don't want to spend 10 minutes per thing, but take your time each time you do it. And we will put multiple coats on. And it's just like painting in the lines in a sense. And you can kind of go over a little bit, especially since you've put it down and pushed it down multiple different times. And it does take quite a few different times going over this same design. So start where you started the first time, or pretty close to it. That way you've let the other have time to dry. If you are doing this over a stamp, just know that doing it over a stamp will eat through some of the stamp. You're putting acetone and whatever dye right over top of it. And whenever you do that, you do have the potential of ruining it. That stamp is. And you just, I mean, you may want to do that, but I try not to. I do know some people who don't use acetone and they use some other different chemicals. But I just don't think it dyes it as well, so it's one of the reasons I erased the stamp of Discmania and Evolution from the top of this one, just to hopefully get a little bit better opportunity for this to dye really well. The other thing I like to do is let this thing sit for at least 5 minutes after I've gone ahead and done this, and let that dye really soak into the disc well. And then you peel it back, and then you wash it up to see exactly kind of your outcome. Which so far I've only had really good outcomes with this method. And so hopefully today is the same. I think it's going to be, but you never know until you actually kind of peel it back and reveal it all. So I'm just going over all the areas to make sure I didn't miss anything, and it's all about the same shade of darkness. And then go ahead and take your just basic acetone, which I've used this numerous times, so it will look very dark. You just want to clean off your paintbrush. And you're going to go ahead and let this sit for 5 minutes at least. If you have more time you can give, that's probably even better. So now that that's set for 5 minutes, you can go ahead and actually, let's go ahead and just put some Dawn dish soap and water on it and just spray it. And grab a paper towel and just get any of the extra dye up just so it doesn't get on our hands or anywhere else. And begin peeling everything off. Then we'll get the pick. Just peel back a corner of that. Here's the moment of truth. Outside line looks really clean so far. Nice. And now hopefully this inside and these little portions right here come off nice and clean. Yeah, this would be very hard to do without one of these picks. I know it can be done, but probably not preferred. These just really help picking up this vinyl right off of here. Especially if you're wearing gloves, which I highly encourage. I know some people choose not to wear gloves. I don't want my hands to look nasty all week from doing a dyed disc on the weekend or whenever you choose to do it. And this one really stuck on there good, which is good because that means it should do exactly what I wanted it to do and come off really clean the whole way around. So far, super, super clean, which is what you'll want to see. Not done yet. 3 more sections. Last section. Here's the moment of truth. Go ahead and take all the little stickies off your finger or wherever you're collecting them. Throw them in the trash. And time to see what this disc looked like. That turned out super sweet. Got the double spin rim and that sweet galactic order right there. So that thing should be really, really awesome. You can even kind of see it from underneath, and I probably need to take my sticker off from where I bought it, but I haven't yet. Been throwing this one for about a week or 2, maybe 3 weeks now. Super fun flying disc, but now I just made it look really awesome and really sweet. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment. If you do have any questions, please like it if this was helpful. And also subscribe if you haven't yet. It really does help out the channel. I'm getting close to that 1,000 mark. I think I'm in the mid 700s right now, and so need to get that 1,000 mark. So hopefully I can make at least a couple of pennies off my different dies and designs that I do and all the other videos I do. And so thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you guys.